Loving greetings to each one of you who is here at the SRF Glendale Temple in Los Angeles, California, and also to the thousands of our friends and members who are joining us via live stream from around the world. And also welcome to those who will be joining us later by watching the recording of this class. It's a special joy for me to be with you this evening here. My name is Brother Kamalananda, and I am a monk living and serving at the SRF International Headquarters, the Mother Center on Mount Washington in Los Angeles, and it's only about a 15-minute drive, as most of you know, from the Glendale Temple. And as we all know, the class tonight is part of the 2023 SRF World Convocation. And the subject for our class is the Guru, Messenger of God. It's a very profound and vast subject, and in the limited time that we have this evening, we will be able to touch only a few facets of this profound topic. What we will do is we will have a 45-minute talk, and following that, we will have a 15-minute guided meditation that I will lead, in which we can practice some of the principles that we will be discussing during the talk. Now, I know the audience for this class consists primarily of SRF and YSS, Self-Realization Fellowship, Yogananda Satsang Society of India, members and friends. And so, I am going to focus primarily on Paramahansa Yogananda as our Gurudev and Guru Preceptor of this path. However, the principles that we will discuss this evening will generally apply equally to any guru-disciple relationship. So even if you're not following the SRF YSS path or do not have Paramahansa Yoganandaji as your guru, the principles that we will discuss will still apply to your own individual guru-disciple relationship. The class description that is given on the SRF website reads as follows. Through meditation, understanding, and attunement, the devotee comes to realize that a true guru is ever living and ever guiding the lives of those who turn to him. This class will focus on how we can develop that deeper attunement that will allow us to more completely express the joyous inner freedom of the soul that is revealed through inner receptivity to the messenger of God. So when you take this description apart, it breaks into three different, very clear sections. The first section is through spiritual understanding and meditation, realizing that a true guru is ever living and ever guiding the lives of his or her disciples. That is point one. The second point is developing a greater attunement with the true guru. And the third is expressing the joyous inner freedom of the soul through inner receptivity to the true guru. So we will discuss these three basic points in the rest of the class. So the first is, who is a true guru? What is a true guru? And what is the importance of a true guru? To me, the importance of a true guru is very succinctly and clearly described in the very first sentence of Paramahansa Yoganandaji's autobiography of a yogi. And I would guess that most of you or all of you have read that book, and perhaps most of you remember what the first sentence is. It says, "The characteristic features of Indian culture have long been a search for ultimate verities and the concomitant guru-disciple-guru relationship." Right there, it describes what the purpose of the guru is and what the importance of a true guru is. Basically, it's saying that when one is on the spiritual path with the goal of attaining self-realization under the guidance of a guru, that the search for the ultimate verities, meaning the ultimate truths of life, which is what is the purpose of life and how do we attain it, That journey can be ultimately successful only under the guidance of a true guru, a Sadguru. I would like to share with you a traditional story from India, and I have to forewarn you there are many variations of this story, and I'm going to tell you my version tonight. So there was this village, and on one side of this village was this massive wall, very long, very tall. No one in the village knew what lay on the other side. And villagers over the centuries had tried to climb this wall to try to figure out what was on the other side, but they were very unsuccessful. For one thing, the wall was extremely smooth. It was like glass. There were no cracks. It was almost impossible to climb it. And so this remained a mystery for the villagers. Now, one day, a young, strong man made up his mind that no matter what, life or death, I am going to climb that wall. So he gathered his friends with him, and they all went to the bottom of the wall, and he started climbing the wall, and the friends were cheering him on. And it took him a lot of toil, sweat, hours and hours of very delicate, careful climbing, but he made it to the top. He made it to the top, he stood on the ledge, and the friends were waiting to find out what he saw on the other side. So this man looks on the other side, and in great excitement he says, "Oh my God!" and he just leaps to the other side. And the friends are like, "What happened? I mean, he didn't even tell us." And so they were waiting for him to come back and maybe tell them what he saw, but he never showed up. So they just went back home very disappointed. Still, the mystery remained unsolved. So after some more months, a young lady, strong woman, she said, "I'm going to do it too." So she gathered her friends, they went to the wall, and again, after painstaking effort, careful climbing, she reached the top. And they were all waiting with their mouths open to see. And she looks at the other side, says, "Oh my God!" and she leaps. And the villagers are wondering, like, what is going on here? Why can't they at least tell us something before they leap? So after some months, third person climbs the wall successfully. Same thing happens. Jumps to the other side without telling the villagers. The villagers are extremely frustrated. They don't know what's going on. Now, after a long time, one of these people who went to the other side comes back to the top of the wall from the other side. And they yell out to the villagers, "Come, come, come, I want to tell you." So they all assemble, and this person says, "You have no idea how glorious and beautiful it is on the other side. You got to make the effort to climb this wall, and I'll give you some tips. This is how you do it." And then he jumps back to the other side. Right? And that person can be compared to the sages and saints who have, through the centuries, through the example of their life and teachings, told people about the glories and the beauties and the divine glories of the kingdom of God or of the state of cosmic consciousness self-realization. And they give some tips and teachings of how we can attain that state that they have attained. Right? And we are all very grateful. Perhaps each and every one of us has been impacted by the life and teachings of these great saints before we discovered our Guru, right? And we are forever grateful for those teachers and great saints who have come down the centuries. Now, what happens is after some more time, one of the people, out of the three people who had climbed and successfully gone to the other side, they come back to the wall and they again gather the villagers. And this person tells them about the beauties of life on the other side, how wonderful it is, how it's an eternal spring, and you need to make the effort to climb this wall, even though it is fraught with danger, you got to make the effort. And then the person gives them some instructions, but they don't stop there. They come down to the side of the village, and they help these villagers one by one. This person, he says, "I will push you up, and I will give you step-by-step instructions. Put your foot here, put your hand there." And not only that, when a person falls down, that man is there. He picks them up, brushes the dust off of their backs, and says, "Do it again." And he does it until every villager is able to successfully climb the wall and go to the other side. Now that man can be compared to the true guru, because a true guru has attained the ultimate state of self-realization, attained oneness with God, but out of the sheer compassion of his heart, he or she comes back to our level on this mundane earth and says, you can do it too. And I will tell you step by step how to do it. And not only that, I will be here until each and every one of you does it. And such a one is our Sadguru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, and the Param Gurus of the SRF YSS path. We have not just one Sadguru, we have 6 line of masters, a line of 6 masters here, each of them fully liberated, and each of them extremely interested in helping us attain the state of consciousness that each one of them has. Guruji wrote a poem called God's Boatman, and I'm just going to read to you a couple of lines from that poem which describes what we just talked about. He said, "Oh, I will come again and again, crossing a million crags of suffering with bleeding feet. I will come, if need be, 1,000,000,000,000 times, so long as I know one stray brother is left behind." And of course, when Guruji says brother, he means humankind, not just men and women. In the ancient Indian scriptures, they say that a soul can have 3 great blessings. The greatest blessings that a soul can have are 3. The first is birth in a human body. The second is a sincere desire for seeking and finding God. And the third is having a God-realized guru. Think of it, each one of us on this blessed path of SRF YSS is fortunate to have those 3 blessings. We have birth in a human form. Hopefully we have fire and a very strong desire to find God in this life. And the third is we have a Sadguru, a divine guru, a true guru in the form of our beloved Gurudev Paramahansa Yogananda Ji. Guruji wrote, "A guru is a living embodiment of scriptural truth, an agent of salvation appointed by God in response to a devotee's incessant petitions for release from the bondage of matter." In other words, it is not that we find the guru. God appoints the guru for each one of us individually. We may feel that we have made the effort and after a long time we found the guru. Yes, of course, we have put in the effort. But we have had to go down on our knees and prayed deeply enough. Like Guruji says, when the devotee's incessant petitions, when we say, God, enough is enough, send me someone who can lead me back to my divine home. And God says, okay, I will send you the guru. I have chosen this guru for you. He or she will guide you back home. So we have discussed what a true guru is and the importance of a true guru. Next, I would like to touch upon a couple of qualities. What do we look for in a true guru? Of course, a true guru is one with God, one with that cosmic consciousness, one with spirit. And so a true guru manifests all of the divine qualities. But there are just a couple that I want to touch upon this evening. When I was a young seeker growing up in India, I was looking for a guru. And I was observing very closely the saints that came into my sphere of observation. And there was one particular quality that I was looking for above all else, one quality. You know what that was? Humility. Humility. Because a true guru who has become one with God has no taint of ego, no pride. Impossible. And The attention that a guru receives from a disciple or disciples, the guru gives to God. He or she doesn't keep anything for themselves. They turn the attention of their disciples to God and God alone. When I read the autobiography of a yogi and saw the photographs of Paramahansaji in the book, I was convinced beyond a shadow of doubt that here was someone who manifested all of the divine qualities that I was looking for in a true master. Humility, divine love, kindness, wisdom, joy. And I had absolutely no hesitation in accepting him as my Sadguru. I know each one of you has a unique story like that. The second quality that I want to speak about a true guru this evening is omnipresence. In our limited human consciousness, body consciousness, it is almost impossible for us to fully grasp what omnipresence even means. Yes, intellectually we can understand that consciousness is in every particle of creation. And yet, that's just an intellectual understanding. To really understand or realize that in every fiber of our being, we have to elevate our consciousness. Let me ask all of you who are sitting here in the temple this evening, how many of you met Paramahansa Yogananda ji in the physical form until his passing in 1952? Anyone? Raise your hand. Not a single one. And yet, I dare say that each and every one of you has, in a very real and deep way, felt his presence in your lives. Isn't it so? Raise your hands if you have felt Yoganandaji's presence in your life. Almost all hands. And not to talk about the thousands of people who are joining us, you're probably raising your hands too, but we know that you are there. The other point that always impresses me is in the SRF and YSS ashrams, we have a few hundred monks and nuns from all parts of the world. Different languages, cultures, backgrounds, educations. With the exception of one, none of us have met Paramahansa Yoganandaji in the physical form. And yet, each one of us has been so profoundly touched by him and his teachings that we have completely changed our lifestyles and 100% dedicated ourselves to following his teachings and to serving his work. I mean, think of that, a few hundred who have completely changed their lives, even though we have never met him. And not to talk about his SRF and YSS work, which has only steadily thrived and grown since his physical passing. All of these demonstrate, without a doubt, isn't it, in our minds, that we have an ever-living guru who is interested in each one of our lives in our spiritual progress, and he won't give up on us until we reach that state of consciousness that he has. Guruji wrote, "For masters who can span the infinity of omnipresence, there is no difference between their seen and unseen presence, or in the blessings they bestow on disciples who are in tune, whether during or after the earth life of the master." In other words, whether the master is in physical form is of no consequence. No consequence, because the body means nothing for a true guru. The true guru's availability and help is always there for us, whether we can see him or her or not. I'll tell you a little fun story. Perhaps most of you have seen this documentary called Awake, The Life of Yogananda, that came out some years ago. The film team was in the early days of the making and the production of the movie. They were interviewing many disciples of the SRF YSS path just to understand how they discovered the teachings and how the teachings have impacted their lives and so forth. So they met this one disciple and they said, "How did you find the teachings?" And he said, "Well, I was walking in the library and a book fell off the shelf, hit my head, and it was the autobiography of a yogi." And the film team sort of rolled their eyes and said, "Yeah, right?" Because they couldn't totally believe. Maybe they thought maybe he was exaggerating a bit. But then as time went on, they interviewed dozens of other disciples. And several more of them said the same thing. They said, "We were walking in a bookstore or a library or even at home. A book just fell off, hit us on the head, and it was the autobiography of a yogi." So then the film team said, "Okay, no, there must be something to this. All of these people are not making up the story." So here is the fun part. So after the documentary came out, I was conducting with another monk a retreat at the SRF Lake Shrine in Pacific Palisades in west of LA. And I was having breakfast with the retreatants one morning. And after breakfast, we were just sitting around the table and talking. And I mentioned the story to the retreatants. And after I had finished the story, one of the retreatants, a woman, she said, "Brother, that's exactly what happened to me." She said, "I was sleeping in my bedroom one night in my home, and I was awakened by this rumble in the neighboring room. And she was scared. She thought maybe somebody had broken into the house or something. She mustered up her courage to get up. She opened the door to the other room, walked through it. It was pitch dark. And she walked by this bookshelf, and this book fell off the top shelf, hit her hard on the head, and fell on the ground. She was very irritated and annoyed. So she went and turned on the light, and lo and behold, it was the autobiography of a yogi. And she said that book had been on her bookshelf for many years. She had not read it. And she said, God was giving me the sign, read that book. And she did, and it changed her life. And there she was at the retreat. The master said, all true gurus are living, whether in a physical body or not. Their consciousness is attuned to their disciples, whether or not all are living on the same plane. One of the essential qualities and manifestations of a true guru is omnipresence. So we have spoken about the importance of a true guru, what a true guru is, what he does for the disciples. That a true guru is ever living and ever guiding the lives of each of his or her disciples. So that was the first key point in the description of the class. The second key point is, how do we develop greater attunement with the guru? And that's what we will discuss next. Now, in the SRF YSS lessons, Guruji has given a very concise, compact, to-the-point formula of how to develop attunement with the Guru. And I'm going to read this to you. He wrote, attunement with the Guru comes through 100% loyalty to him and to his associates and activities, through willing obedience to his counsel, whether verbal or in his teachings, through visualizing him in the spiritual eye, and through unconditional devotion to him. So there it is. He gives us 4 key guiding principles or qualities that we need to develop to have greater attunement with the Guru. So let's take these one by one. So the first is loyalty, 100% loyalty to the Guru and his activities, meaning the Guru and his work. 2 is willing obedience to the Guru's counsel, whether verbal or in his teachings. 3, unconditional devotion to the Guru. And 4 is visualizing the Guru in the spiritual eye and praying to him to help us. So we'll take these one by one now. So the first is, but before we do that, I just want to say that these principles can be effectively practiced only upon the foundation of scientific yoga meditation, which is the essence of the SRF YSS path. And we won't have time to discuss meditation in the class tonight, But as you know, there have been several classes on the topic of meditation, on the different techniques of meditation that have been given during this week of the SRF convocation. So the first is loyalty to the Guru and his associates and his activities. Guruji said loyalty is the highest law. And there was a whole class last night by Brother Govindananda on the topic of loyalty. Loyalty is the highest law. What does he mean by that? What I take away from that is that 100% loyalty to the Guru once we have accepted someone as our true Guru, 100% loyalty to that true Guru is a necessary condition, a prerequisite for us to attain self-realization. Without that loyalty, we cannot attain that final state. The story that comes to my mind when I think of this quality of loyalty is that of Kumar in the autobiography of a yogi in the chapter Years in My Master's Hermitage. I can't tell you how many times I go back to that particular story, and especially that whole chapter as well. So I think most of you know the story, but in brief, Kumar was this young villager who was accepted by Sri Yukteswar into his hermitage for training. And he was a remarkably intelligent young man, and he very quickly won the affection of Sri Yukteswarji. Now we know from reading the autobiography of a yogi that Sri Yukteswar was a very strict disciplinarian. He was very critical of the disciples' smallest faults, but for some reason he adopted an uncritical attitude toward Kumar. And not only that, within a short time, he elevated Kumar to a position of leadership in the ashram, replacing Mukunda, which was the pre-monastic name of Paramahansaji, and giving Paramahansaji some other duties, lesser duties, so to speak. Now, what happened is Kumar assumed this leadership role and he started exercising a petty household tyranny inside the ashram. And the other disciples continued to seek out Paramahansaji for his daily counsel. Now, let us put ourselves in Mukunda's shoes. Okay? Here we are. Your guru just comes in and replaces you with a new kid on the block who's not even liked by the others. How would we respond in that situation? I think it is safe to say that most of us would be resentful, we would be angry, we would even maybe start doubting the justice and the wisdom of the Guru. I mean, be honest. Those are the feelings that will come in the heart right away. How did Guruji respond? I'll read to you what he wrote in the autobiography. Though the new boy was obviously Sri Yukteswar's favorite, I felt no dismay. Personal idiosyncrasies possessed even by masters lend a rich complexity to the pattern of life. My nature is seldom commandeered by a detail. I was seeking from Sri Yukteswar a higher benefit than outward praise. Unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, who responds like that? Only a true guru himself will respond to that kind of discipline. I mean, Guruji's attitude shows the highest level of loyalty and spiritual understanding. Once he knew that Sri Yukteswarji was one with God and could lead him to that same state of ultimate realization, he gave him 100% loyalty, irrespective of the tests that inevitably come into the disciple's life. And we have to demonstrate our loyalty, especially when tested, isn't it? It's easy to be loyal when things are going well. We have to demonstrate our loyalty when we are tested. But if we stay the course, understanding will come and there will be tremendous spiritual growth. Now, as described in the autobiographies, things did not end well for Kumar, unfortunately. In short, he was asked to leave the ashram. Now, think of it. Again, put ourselves in Yoganandaji's shoes. Here is someone who was such a pain in the neck, on a day-to-day basis, he's been asked to leave. Wow, what a relief. Finally, I can. No. How did Guruji respond? He wrote, Kumar's departure brought me no elation. Sadly, I wondered how one with the power to win a master's love could readily respond to worldly allures. Guruji was actually sad that Kumar left. Again, his attitude demonstrates the highest spiritual understanding and maturity. Each story in the autobiography, like this one, has a deep lesson for us that we can, if we ponder on it, introspect, we can learn something that can apply in our own lives, no matter what tests and trials we may be facing. That book is a scripture. And now, loyalty extends to Guruji's teachings and to his work of SRF YSS, the work which he founded and gave his life for. Now that he's no longer with us physically, his body is his work of SRF YSS. Guruji said, those who are 100% loyal to their Guru can be certain of ultimate liberation and ascension. One may have many teachers, but only one Guru, who remains as one's Guru even in many different lives, until the disciple reaches the final goal of emancipation in God. You must remember this once that relationship has been formed. So that was the first guiding principle, 100% loyalty to the Guru and his work. The second point that Guruji gives us to develop deeper attunement with the Guru is willing obedience to his counsel. Now, we know that in the SRF YSS lessons and in his other books, Guruji has given us such a profound wealth of spiritual wisdom and knowledge that we have guidance to solve pretty much every situation and problem that can arise in our life. And I think many or most of us have had the experience where we randomly open any lesson or any of his books, and we read exactly what we needed at that particular moment in time in our lives. Isn't it so? I see many nodding heads here. Now, the important point is, what do we do with what we read? Of course, Guruji's words are very inspiring and uplifting, but until we put them into action, they are not of much value. You see, Guruji's words are not just ink on paper or pixels on a digital screen. They are imbued with his divine vibrations, his consciousness. The word obedience in today's day and time has a negative connotation. It seems restrictive, it constrains you, and yet that is not true. Because if you think deeply, every moment of our lives, we are actually making a choice in obeying one thing or another. We are obeying either the whims and dictates of the ego or the voice of the higher self, the soul. Every moment, we have a choice. We are making that choice, whether we know it or not, to obey the ego or to obey the soul. So we are obedient already. It's a matter of changing our obedience to the right thing. Guruji wrote, my Guru Sri Yukteswar said to me when he accepted me for training, freedom of will does not consist in doing things according to the dictates of prenatal or postnatal habits or of mental whims, but in acting according to the suggestions of wisdom and free choice. If you tune in your will with mine, you will find freedom. And then Guruji goes on to say, my will had been guided formerly by habits. But when I obeyed my Guru, tuning in my will with his God-guided, wisdom-guided will, I did find freedom. I want to share a little story at this point about a man called John Kenneth Galbraith and his housekeeper, Emily Wilson. John Kenneth Galbraith was one of the foremost economists, an American economist of the last century, of the 20th century. And he had this housekeeper by the name of Emily Wilson. Mr. Galbraith also incidentally happened to be the US ambassador to India in the early 1960s. So one day, Mr. Galbraith came home after a long day's work, and he asked Miss Wilson to hold all telephone calls while he took a nap. So shortly after the telephone rang, Miss Wilson answered. It was President Lyndon Johnson calling from the White House. So he said, "This is President Johnson. I need to speak with Mr. Galbraith." And so she said, "Sir, he's taking a nap and he doesn't want to be disturbed." He said, "Well, wake him up. I need to talk to him." She said, "I'm so sorry, sir. I work for him, not for you." Click. So when Mr. Galbraith woke up, to his horror, he found out what had happened. And he immediately called back the White House, and the president answered the phone, and he was beside himself with joy. And he said, "You tell that lady I want her to come to the White House and work for me." Don't we all admire such willing, intelligent obedience? Think of how much more a true guru would appreciate that quality in the disciple. How can we be obedient to our guru? By sincerely following his Kriya Yoga sadhana and by practicing, putting into practice his how to live teachings in our daily lives. Convert what we read into action. That is how we are being obedient to the Guru and his teachings. Now, another powerful method of listening to the Guru is to literally listen to his voice. We are so blessed that we have so many audio recordings of Paramahansaji with us, available to us freely. I'll tell you that, when I am in a mood or just feeling out of tune, I will often listen to Guruji's voice, even for a few minutes, and it'll snap me out of my mood. And I'll feel right in tune again. Because again, his voice has a vibration. There is a blessing there, apart from the wisdom that he's imparting through his audio. Guruji wrote, "If a disciple is uncarping," meaning doesn't complain, uncarping, unconditionally reverential and loving to the master, and faithful in following his precepts, his receptivity makes the task of the guru easier. So being obedient to the guru is actually helping our own self. Because the guru doesn't need anything from us, the guru has God. He or she is here only to help us attain the same state of consciousness that they have. And so, let us try to make his job easier, right? By following his instructions to the best of our ability. Sure, we will fall, we will make mistakes. That is not the point. So long as we are sincere and trying our best, that's all the Guru expects. And then we become open, receptive channels to receive his guidance and blessings and wisdom. So that's the second quality. We talked about loyalty, and second is obedience. The third quality is unconditional devotion to the Guru. I'll share a little story here of Adi Shankaracharya and one of his disciples. As perhaps most of you know, Adi Shankaracharya was one of the greatest philosophers of ancient India and the reorganizer of the Swami order, to which all the SRF and YSS monks and nuns belong. We belong to the Giri order. Now, Adi Shankara he is often referred to as just Adi Shankara or just even Shankara. So Adi Shankara had 4 main disciples. Now, 3 of these disciples were very learned, very educated, very familiar with the scriptures, and they were also highly advanced spiritually. The fourth disciple was called Giri, Giri, just like the Giri order. That was his name. He was a little slow. He was not very educated, and he was not very advanced spiritually. Now, the other three disciples sort of looked down in a subtle way upon Giri. But Giri was unparalleled, unrivaled in his devotion to his master. Nobody could touch him with that quality. And he saw himself as a slave, as a servant of his guru. He served his guru with utmost devotion and dedication. Now, one day it so happened that Giri was washing his clothes by the river, which was just a little distance away from the ashram. And Shankara was about to give a philosophical discourse on a very deep scriptural point to the disciples. So the other three disciples had already assembled, and Shankara was patiently waiting for Giri to come back to the hermitage. And the other three disciples became a little impatient. And one of them blurted out, they said, "Master, why wait for someone who is no better than a wall?" In other words, he's not going to get what you're going to say anyway, so what's the use of waiting for him? Just let's get going. Now, Shankara did not appreciate that comment. And in order to teach these three disciples a lesson and to bless Giri for his devotion, at that moment in time, he telepathically transferred his entire spiritual realization and wisdom and knowledge to Giri, who was at the riverbank still washing his clothes. And at that moment in time, Giri felt this unbelievable elevation of his consciousness and this inflow of divine knowledge and wisdom. He could hardly walk back home. He was floating. And when he entered the hermitage, he saw Adi Shankara, and he immediately burst forth with some very inspiring verses in Sanskrit in praise of his guru. And from that moment on, he was considered as one of the most advanced disciples of Adi Shankaracharya, and he was called Totakacharya. And eventually Adi Shankara made him the spiritual head of the Jyotirmath ashram near Badrinath. So the point of the story is that when we have unconditional devotion to the Guru makes up for the rest of our deficiencies. Doesn't matter what mistakes we may have made, what shortcomings we have. If we have that real devotion, the Guru will fulfill the rest. And that is why Guruji said, always remember, Kriya Yoga plus devotion, it works like mathematics, it cannot fail. Kriya Yoga plus devotion. Now, our Guru's love for us is unconditional, irrespective of our mistakes, of our flaws. And when we develop that same kind of unconditional devotion for the Guru, we become like an open channel for the Guru to just pour his blessings into our lives, like Adi Shankara did for Totakacharya. So that was the third quality that we want to develop. The fourth is visualizing the Guru in the spiritual eye and asking for his help. Now again, Guruji sets the example for us in this regard as well. You remember from the autobiography of a yogi, as a young boy, before he had found his master, Sri Yukteswarji, Guruji often visualized Lahiri Mahasaya, who was the guru of his parents, and also, we know, the guru of Sri Yukteswarji. Mukunda visualized Lahiri Mahasaya in a spiritual eye and prayed to him in times of trial and confusion. And inevitably, he found Lahiri Mahasaya's solacing direction in his heart. So we too, as disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda, can adopt that practice any time of day and night, anywhere. We can visualize him in our spiritual eye, picture our most favorite photograph of him, and just call on him to help you. Just be with me, Master, be with me. And this is a wonderful practice to adopt in our day-to-day life, in our activities. No matter what our duties, we can take a moment here or there in between duties, close our eyes, visualize the Guru, and we can say, I do this for God and Guru. I do this for God and Guru. It's a wonderful way to spiritualize our actions and to practice the presence of God. And of course, visualizing the Guru in the spiritual eye during meditation is a very powerful technique for spiritual progress. And we will do a little guided meditation of that after we finish the talk. Guruji wrote, if during deep meditation you focus your thoughts upon the Guru and visualize him in the spiritual eye, even if you don't see him, you will achieve attunement with him and feel his presence, his guidance, and his blessing. Even if we don't see him, doesn't matter. The Guru is there. So we lastly come to the third key point at the beginning of the talk that we discussed, expressing the joyous inner freedom of the soul. And so we can ask the question, why is developing attunement with the Guru even important? Why should we even attempt to have greater attunement with the Guru? Well, if you remember, the subject of this class is the Guru, messenger of God. The Guru is the messenger of God. The Guru is one with God. So by attuning ourselves with the true Guru, we attune ourselves with God. And by developing deeper attunement with God, we open ourselves, like we discussed, completely to the full inflow of their love and wisdom and blessings. And then, through gradual spiritual evolution, we will transcend human consciousness and attain that higher state of consciousness while living in the body and live in this world like a divine child filled with the love and joy of God in our hearts. So in closing, I would like to just summarize the key points that we discussed. The first was, through meditation and spiritual understanding, we come to the realization that a true Guru is ever living and ever guiding the lives of his or her disciples. The second point is developing a deeper attunement with the Guru. And Guruji has given us 4 key principles to do that. The first is 100% loyalty to the Guru and his work. Second is obedience, willing obedience to his counsel, whether verbal or in his teachings. The third is unconditional devotion to the Guru. And the fourth is visualizing the Guru in the spiritual eye and asking him for help whenever we have a need. And the third point is attunement with the Guru. Having a greater attunement with the Guru enables us to gradually transcend body consciousness, human consciousness, and to gradually start expressing more and more the joyous inner freedom of the soul, enabling us to live as divine beings on this planet with the love and joy of God in our hearts. So in closing, I would like to read to you these words of Adi Shankaracharya, which Guruji quotes in the autobiography of a yogi. Shankara wrote, "No known comparison exists in the 3 worlds for a true Guru. If a philosopher's stone be assumed as truly such, it can only turn iron into gold, not into another philosopher's stone. The venerated teacher, on the other hand, creates equality with himself in the disciple who takes refuge at his feet. The Guru is therefore peerless, nay, transcendental." Jai Guru. We will now have about a 10-minute guided meditation in which we can practice some of these things that we have spoken about. So please sit in the correct meditation posture, spine erect, away from the back of your seat if possible, shoulders back, abdomen tucked in, feet flat on the floor, neck in line with the spine, chin parallel to the floor, hands with the palms upturned resting on the thighs. Gently close your eyes, lift your gaze, and focus your attention and your gaze gently at the point between the eyebrows, the Kutastha center, the seat of concentration and willpower in the body. Now we will do a simple breathing exercise. We will inhale for a certain count, hold the breath for the same count, and then exhale the breath for the same count. So inhale through the nose and then hold, and then exhale through the mouth. So I will guide us in the breathing, and hopefully it will be comfortable for everyone. So inhale deeply through the nose, hold, exhale through the mouth. Inhale, hold, exhale, inhale, hold, exhale. Now just let go, relax the body, calm the mind. Now visualize in the spiritual eye your Guru. Take a favorite photograph of his or hers. In our case, for Paramahansaji, visualize your favorite photograph of the Guru in the spiritual eye and feel that you are sitting at his feet, just looking at him, adoring him. Take a moment to clearly visualize him in your spiritual eye. Now repeat this affirmation after me. In the stillness of my soul, I bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. In the stillness of my soul, I humbly bow before thine omnipresence, knowing thou art ever leading me onward and upward on the path of self-realization. Now keep on affirming it mentally for a few more moments. we will practice one more technique that Guruji wrote in a letter to Rajarshi Janakananda, who was his foremost and most advanced disciple during his lifetime. Guruji wrote, you can keep your eyes closed as I read to you these words of Guruji, and we will follow it with the practice of it. Whenever you desire to commune with any saint, think first of his image in the spiritual eye. Then relax and concentrate in the heart, trying to feel some of his main characteristics. For instance, of Swami Shankara, think of wisdom. Of Lahiri Mahashay, a joyous perception and wisdom and devotion. Of Yogananda, joyous perception and wisdom and devotion. Of Sri Yukteswarji, wisdom and calm perception of bliss. Then lose yourself in the perception, and the soul of those individuals will possess you. You will act, reason, think, feel like them. Sometimes this might last for hours or days. When this is perfected, ultimately you will see them with closed eyes. When that can be done at will, you will see them with open eyes. This is the mystery of inner communion with saints. Practice that with unfailing zeal until you are certain of this communion. So, as Guruji says, let's again visualize him in our spiritual eye, and then relax and concentrate in the heart and feel his main characteristics, which he himself says are joyous perception and wisdom and devotion. Joyous perception and wisdom and devotion. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the visualization of the Guru and to feeling his main attributes in the heart: joyous perception, wisdom, and devotion. Om Shanti, Shanti, peace. Amen. This concludes our class for this evening. Jai Guru.